know I'm ready. Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the OWLFI podcast with Elliot and
Nathaniel Vossman.
Now,
What's your new name?
we've identified Doge names in our quest to move on to the Doge team. So I just figured I'd be Saggy Bowles.
And I'm going to go ahead and be Buff Bowles.
That's right. So we're going to create new email addresses for this podcast where you'll be able to reach us at saggy.bolz@owlfi.com.
That's one hell of a name right there.
Oh my goodness. But we actually did, we're going to get to it towards the end of this podcast. We actually did email Doge. And then I actually have a couple contacts with people that are very close to Trump and Elon. And then we went ahead and sent over to them the same information that we sent to Doge. And so we might get into that in this podcast. And basically, it's our harebrained scheme to fix the Social Security problem. And we have done an extensive amount of 5-minute research on ChatGPT.
It's still early in the planning process.
Yeah, but I mean,
it is fairly common sense.
Yeah. I mean, so far, and honestly, right, ChatGPT definitely takes what would have taken you, in the internet, Google and ChatGPT and all these things take what would have taken you hours, if not weeks, to do in the past, and to accomplish it very, very quickly. So, yes, it was a cursory.
Yeah, just see that it's not completely insane, and but yeah, that's kind of the beauty of AI. And like, I know for myself, whether we're doing something like this or if I'm just at home or I'm at work, like ChatGPT is kind of like turns into your best friend because it saves you so much time versus like going on Google, looking at 10 different links, comparing all of them.
Yeah.
He's got one tool where this is effectively just like the best version of Google you can imagine.
Oh, I mean,
you
it's
talk with it, and
it's stunning to me. One of my favorite TV shows of all time is Silicon Valley, and one of my favorite scenes ever is the middle out scene. And I'm not going to get into it on this podcast, but anybody that knows what I'm talking about is going to immediately know what the middle out scene is. And it's like having that entire group of guys who are all high level math geniuses at your disposal, right? You can brainstorm. Spin ideas, run the math, run the numbers, run the calculations, do the research, and it's just all bam, bam, bam. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah. Like it's a great tool if you're really using it well, or it could be, like in my opinion, destructive for people who aren't using it correctly. Like for example, like kids in school who just use it purely to cheat or something. Like
but even then, I mean, this is my problem, right? And I I always feel like every older generation goes and tries to stand in front of a tsunami and stop it, right? And so take cell phones. Oh no, we can't have cell phones in the classroom. Before that, it was we can't have calculators in the classroom. I mean, it's like you have to write in cursive.
Well,
really? No, I don't.
Kids do need a basic knowledge of math, English, and all the above.
Yeah, and again. This is my opinion, right? And I love to argue with you. I think that I didn't learn anything in school. I mean, not a thing. Okay. Now my ex-wife loved school.
I hated school for the most part.
Yeah, I did too. I was arrested and thrown out. Top that.
You got me beat.
All right. So my ex-wife loved school. Who was the one in our household who helped the kids with their homework? The person who loved it or the person that hated it?
I'm guessing in this case, the person who hated it.
It was me. Yeah. Now, I didn't know a thing about any topic my children were studying. So how did I help them?
There's a few things. I know where you're leading with this, but I do think some people are naturally born more apt to learn new information. And so
that's the only thing I think is worth learning in life when you're young is how to learn.
Yeah.
That's what people should be even taught. And what do these tools do for you? If somebody taught you how to actually use these AI tools like ChatGPT, I would be teaching kids
Well, I do think it's
how to use ChatGPT in conjunction with their homework.
And I do think it's a valuable tool. But kids also need to be able to and adults, everybody needs to be able to operate like pretty well without any kind of AI, without any kind of technology. And I do think there are people, and you might be one of the cases where like a higher IQ where you can pick things up. But for normal
I'm going to
kids,
take that as a compliment. Thank you.
yes. But for normal,
I mean, I did score an 82 on my IQ test.
That's pretty good as a B. I mean, that's not too bad. But like some kids that, like I'll say average people.
Yeah.
Like if they have a combination of average or below average intelligence plus average or below average or well below average like work ethic and learning this stuff.
Yeah.
Not a good thing. I feel like that's what leads to a population one day
I
where
thought Trump was deporting all those.
Yeah, maybe. But you get people who are like ultra intelligent, and because not only are they born smart, but maybe they also work hard. And you get people who are not, and they're not.
Sure.
I wouldn't say useless.
Yeah.
Like they struggle to I don't know, land a more fulfilling job.
Yeah. Well, all I know is anything my kids were doing, right? Anything you just go on to Google. How do I do this?
Oh, definitely.
It opens up the Khan Academy. Man, I never thought I'd like anything with the word academy in it. I loved the Khan Academy. All the different math and everything like that that I needed to help my kids learn, I learned on the Khan Academy. There was just other programs and stuff like that. And so I would literally, in about 5 minutes, learn whatever it was my kids needed help with, and then I would help them with it. And I'd show them how to research it and how to find it. And I just find that to be way more valuable than what kind of dinosaurs there were.
Yeah.
Or anything about photosynthesis or
yeah.
parallelograms or.
And as with like just about any technology nowadays, AI, I think it's all good, but I guess you call it, what is it, double-edged sword, where there's a good and a bad too.
No, I mean, and that's with everything, right?
Yeah.
And so growing up was just hilarious because every single thing our teacher said to us, what, you think you're going to have a dictionary in your pocket? You think you're going to have a thesaurus in your pocket? You think you're going to have a typewriter in your pocket? You think you're going to have a camera in your pocket? You think you're going to, yes, and yes.
Now we got like the smartest person in the world in our pocket.
I have everything in my pocket.
Yeah.
Like
immediately.
Yeah.
Like what's so beautiful about something like ChatGPT or just AI in general, like you could be so uninformed on a topic to not even know like the right question to ask, but you just take a picture or something, or you just like put some words together and like ChatGPT just knows what the hell you're talking about, and it just spits out the most useful information. It's pretty crazy, actually.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to give you an example when we talk about this idea for Social Security that I sent in. When I was breaking it down with ChatGPT, if you didn't know, like there's a very specific prompt, it gave me an answer, and I realized that through its explanation, it was lacking a key piece of information. So then I asked it a question, well, what if we were to add this piece of information in? And when it did that, it drastically altered the outcome.
Yeah.
So I do think that with anything, yes, I don't need to be very skilled, knowledgeable, intelligent to use it, have it improve my output. But like every tool, the smarter you are, the more educated about the topic you're researching, the more intelligent questions you're able to ask, the better the output. So,
yeah.
And I just think kids would benefit a lot. I just hope schools don't shun these things like they did with cell phones and computers and all that stuff in the beginning. I hope they adapt them and
definitely,
and incorporate it and teach kids how to truly make use of these things.
Because it is the future, and it is honestly the present at this point too.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I use it a lot for work, a lot during my personal life.
Yeah.
Just about anything. It's a pretty beautiful tool.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm actually in the middle of taking a whole online course on AI and all the different AI apps that are out there, and how to create the correct prompts and all that kind of stuff. So kind of going full tilt.
I think it's useful.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yep. All right. So what are we going to get into today besides how to save the world?
Well, the main topic we're kind of covering today is tax policy, so Trump tax policy.
Yep.
So a little less exciting than our beautiful plan to solve America's budget, but I think we'll still make it interesting.
Sweet. Let's
Anything
try.
You want to start with?
No, you got the notes. Let's hit your outline. I mean, you're always pretty good at this. Like, it's pretty awesome.
So there's some things like policies that you hear about Trump or Kamala on the campaign trail that's like on the media so much because they're new policy proposals. They might be crazy. Like Trump talking about how beautiful tariffs are. Kamala talking about the capital gains tax or
all the giveaways.
Yeah, just other stuff, good or bad. But there are some policies in place that Trump was really running on that didn't really come up that much. And in particular, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017.
Yep.
Because a lot of these provisions are still in place, but there's a handful that are set to expire this year.
Correct.
So effectively, with Trump being in office, he is responsible for this, whether it's going to be extended or set to expire. Most likely, as we'll get into, will just be extended. So some of the provisions include, I don't know how deep you want to get into each one, but we got the individual tax cuts. So before 2017 to after this Tax Cuts Act, every single tax bracket was lowered by a couple percent. And this is one of the things that, for good reason, has been argued to help the wealthy significantly. Because people who are way above the top tax brackets, they really benefit a lot from that. I think it's 2.6% drop in marginal taxes. And there are some of these provisions that do help the wealthies, do hurt the wealthies, a little bit of both. Another provision that's set to expire is the standard deduction. So the Tax Cuts Act of 2017 doubled that standard deduction. So if it were to expire, it'd be basically cut in half. And that's going to, like right now, it helps people who are, I wouldn't say necessarily poor, although definitely, poor, but average people who are taking that standard deduction. They enjoy having a higher standard deduction, allowing them to pay a little bit less in tax, whereas more wealthy people probably itemizing things. And then child tax credits, right now it's at $2,000. If it expires, it goes back to $1,000. I think this is one of the provisions that will probably be kind of, instead of extended, added to, because J.D. Vance had touted the increase to $5,000.
They're just super stupid. And so what's great about this, there's a lot of things in here that I would be pro for, and I think are smart. And there's some shit in here that's just bullshit. It's pandering. It's, so one of the things, this is actually our second time filming this, as we're getting off the ground and starting to do this, right? So one of the things that we were talking about previously is that the lowest 50% of America, of the income earners in America, are contributing to 3% of the federal income tax. What are you crediting back to them?
I mean, to them, it might be a decent amount, though.
No, it's a decent amount because it's not their money.
Oh, yeah.
It's welfare. It's not. Nobody's getting their taxes back because they didn't pay them in the first place, or I should say, very few. The child tax credit is just a way to take money from one group of people and to give it to another. If I'm not contributing anything, how am I getting something back? Well, because it's being stolen from someone else. So this is straight pandering. It's stupid. Unless I guess you could, and I still would disagree with it, because I don't think there's ever a scenario in which that's morally okay. That's just my personal stance. Yeah. Okay? The rationale on the conservative side would be that you want to incentivize people to have more children.
Exactly.
Right? The single greatest threat to humanity is actually the lack of children. It's the coming population implosion. All right? Now, on the other side of the political spectrum, it's like, you can just trot some, ash-covered waif out and claim they're starving, sick, homeless. I mean, housing discriminated. What's the unhoused, right? Yeah, that's the new thing. You just put "un" in front of something, right? We're not an illegal alien. We're an undocumented alien. We're not a homeless person. We're an unhoused person. We're not a gender. We're an ungendered individual. I don't know if that's a one or not.
Seems reasonable.
You're not dumb. You're unintelligent. That one works.
It does. Yeah, I mean, I guess on this one, I'm.
And they want to increase
more
it to $5,000 a kid. Are you
Yeah.
kidding me? So imagine a family of 3 or 4 that has contributed nothing to the system.
Yeah.
And now you're going to turn around and hand them 15 or 20 grand.
Yeah, I mean,
Where'd that come from?
I mean, I think this 5,000 number. There's no specifics on it as far as like how much would be refundable in case like you're not paying tax.
Yeah, and so that's the only thing. Well, and even then, I'm not for it. Right?
I think right now that two grand is up to 80% refundable. So like if you were to for some reason not have any tax, not pay any tax, you'd still be able to get $1,600 whenever you pay your taxes.
Yeah. And so I just think that I teach my kids that they got to be an active participant on the team to have access to the team's resources, right? So they've got to do chores, they got to contribute, they got to, take care of their pets, they got to clean their room, they got to do their laundry, they got to mow the lawn, they got to clean up after their friends,
so
stuff like that, right?
These.
And if half of the population is not contributing to America, then what kind of camaraderie are they going to have? What kind of connection to the team America, right?
So the bottom half of people, like how many of them really aren't paying taxes versus how many just pay such a small portion?
And so that's where I'm willing.
Someone who's making $30,000 a year isn't going to pay that much in taxes.
No, and I'm fine with that. Right? Because as people are able to acquire more, I'm not really, I guess, but I understand America's bought into the progressive tax system. And we'll get into this in other conversations. I'm 100% against all federal taxation of American citizens, first and foremost. So anywhere you can cut somebody's taxes, I'm 100% for it. So I don't have a problem with if you only contributed $1,000 in taxes, and let's say you had 4 kids, right? And you had $1 million child tax credit per kid, but it was capped at the maximum amount that you paid in taxes. Yeah, I'm fine with that. Give them the $1,000 back. I think there should be a minimum out of your income that you contribute to society if anybody's going to be taxed. If I'm going to tax person A, I think you've got to tax person B. I think in order to put everybody in the same boat and tie people together and make them all have that camaraderie that needs to be there as Americans on the American team, you can't do to one person and not do it to another. So if you're going to tax one, you should be taxing everybody. Now, you don't have to tax them a lot, but there should be at least some minimum amount of tax percentage based, right? So maybe it's 1%. No matter what, you have to contribute 1%.
How many people are paying 0%?
Yeah, have you Googled it?
That's something.
Or chat? We need to switch that. Have you chat GPT'd it?
Say, why are we Googling anymore?
Exactly. I don't know. We need that music. The Jeopardy.
That'd be nice. Let's see.
See, if we'd been taught how to use ChatGPT, we would have already had the answer to this.
It is a good amount. So
holy Toledo.
40 to 45% of U.S. households pay zero federal income tax.
And then I got something from Tax Policy Center that says 40 to 60% have not paid any federal income tax in a given year.
I guess I don't even really know how that's possible. That's crazy.
No, I knew it was.
I knew you knew it was, but to me, like that's just like a wild number.
Yeah,
because right. I know you and I are in different tax brackets, but I've never had a year where I didn't pay any federal income tax.
Right. Well, I mean, you deserve to pay it.
I know.
You're like, how tall are you?
6'1" white dude.
6'1", you're white, you're straight. You got that chiseled jawline, those incredible abs. They're going to tax you more for the abs.
That's fair. The ab tax.
The ab tax. That actually sounds legit.
Yeah, I mean,
look. So how in the world can you have a team? How can you have cohesion? Right? How can you bring people together and have cohesion when you're constantly dividing people? You're constantly saying, you get special treatment, you don't. You get this, you don't, right? Like we're either all on a boat rowing together or we're not. And right now, you have half of the people in the boat not rowing. I mean, they're not even fetching water for the people that are rowing.
Yeah. I feel like a further search would be like excluding people who are retired and people who are in school.
Why would you exclude retired people? Because all their 401ks, IRAs, pension plans, that's all taxable.
Well, I mean, not all of them. There's plenty of very poor. Because retirees owe no federal income tax.
Yeah, because they're living off Social Security.
Exactly, which probably.
And if you're just getting your Social Security, most likely you're not even having to file a tax return.
Oh, no, definitely.
See, and I don't think you can just say like what would you say? What would be the prompt, right? We're talking about having the right prompt, being intelligent to come up with the right prompt, right?
Yeah.
If I said, what percentage of working people? I'm excluding all the people that don't work, all the grifters on disability. I'm not saying everybody on disability is a grifter, but there are a lot of grifters on disability.
Yeah, there's a lot of exclusions you'd have to do.
Right.
But as far as like people on Social Security, you could just say. Well,
so I just think you can say how many people over the age of 18 do not pay any federal income tax in America. All right, here we go. 31% of all tax filers in the United States owed zero income tax from NTU.org.
What percent?
31. The figure includes individuals of all ages, not exclusively those over 18. So anybody filing, it's tax filers. So that excludes all the people who are just collecting Social Security that don't file a tax return. Yeah, and so I'm just saying, like with these child tax credits, right? Like I'm not for anybody pandering, right? I thought Kamala Harris's closing statement at the debate was just pathetic. It was just a laundry list of bullshit she was going to give away to different groups. I mean, it's like, why not just get up there and say, vote for me and I'll give everybody $10,000 a year? I mean, you're just full of shit. You have no real policy reforms to run on. You're not bringing anything. When I have to. I mean, imagine that you went around to the dating pool and you told every girl, "Hey, if you date me, I'll give you $10,000." You're not winning on substance.
No.
Right? So there's no substance there when you're having to buy everybody's vote.
I thought it was funny.
And this is the same thing. This is the same thing from the right. This is the same thing from J.D. Vance and Trump. Yeah. And I'm against this bullshit regardless of who it's coming from.
Yeah. I saw it was funny looking back on, I think it was I guess you call it town hall, but when Kamala Harris was with Oprah, I just remember seeing a clip where they had like people calling in and stuff. There was that one couple that called in talking about, it's like, oh man, we're really drowning in our mortgage, this and that, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, my husband's an accountant, I'm a school teacher, something like that. And then Kamala Harris, like, just like her brain going on the talking points, like her first thing is just like, well, I'm like, and they're like, how can you like help people like us? And she's like, her first thing she says is something like, well, for first time home buyers, I'm going to give them a $25,000 tax credit or whatever. And it's like, well, they already bought their home.
Yeah, what does that have to do with that?
So
that has nothing to do with the conversation.
And then she goes on to say about the $50,000 tax credit for small businesses.
Yeah, still has nothing to do with that.
Anything. I thought that was like kind of funny. It's like, bro, you're kind of missing your chance to like do something good here.
I think they're just fortunate she didn't say, well, some people have large mortgages and some people have small mortgages. Yeah. And your large mortgage might be next door to a smaller mortgage.
That sounds like something she would say. So, and then back to some of these expiring provisions, though. There's the estate tax exemption. And so the Tax Cuts Act doubled that. And so, for example, like right now, I think the tax exemption for estates is at $14 million approximately.
Yeah.
And so if this expires, it'd go down to roughly $7 million. So right now there's some that's helping the wealthy because not many average people have anything near a $14 million estate.
Correct.
Even $7 million is quite high
Yeah,
for normal,
yeah,
normal people.
right. I mean, there's not a right. There's not a lot of people, right? But it's not just so. I mean, everybody knows $7 million is not a lot of money.
For normal people. Because we just looked, approximately 50%.
No, I
approximately
understand.
50% of Social Security beneficiaries pay no federal income tax.
No, I
That
totally
means they're
understand
living
that.
off zero assets, much less 7 million.
No, I understand.
And people who have 7 million probably like to spend that in retirement.
Okay, so in order to hit the top 1% of wealthiest Americans, oh geez, man, we got to do better as a country. You only need to have a net worth of $5.8 million.
Exactly.
And that puts you in the top 1%.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
So that 14 million is absurd.
Well, I mean,
But at the same time, though, it's like, what the hell does it even matter at that point? You're talking about so few people that, like, there's people that have hundreds of millions.
Yeah. Again, you'll never hear me advocate for taxing anybody. I don't care who they are or how much money they have, right? That money, every single dime that estate has accumulated has been taxed 8 ways from Sunday already.
Yeah. Oh,
right?
100%.
You taxed their earnings. Then you taxed their investments. You taxed everything they ever spent a dime on. All the property they own, you tax every year through property taxes. Every vehicle they purchase, you tax at sales taxes, and then you tax every year through property taxes. Like, the government has gotten so much money off of.
Yeah, they love these rich people.
Yeah. I mean, they just bleed them, right? And somehow they've managed to accumulate. Obviously, like, just think about this. Let's flip this, right? Let's reverse Uno this whole idea right here, right? It's so insanely difficult to accomplish that less than 1% of all Americans do it. And what are you going to do to them? Fuck them.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And
See,
what is the tax, like 40% on amounts above?
above the, I don't know. Can you look that up? I want to look up something else real quick while you're doing that.
Yeah, it's a flat 40% on the taxable portion of an estate that exceeds the exemption amount. So that's pretty
insane.
Crazy. So it's not a small amount of tax to be paid.
No,
that's massive. That's higher. That's 3 points higher, 3% higher than the highest marginal tax bracket right now.
All right, here we go. I just asked a question. I think the results are going to be insane. I just asked ChatGPT, how much taxes would the government collect of a lifetime off of a person making $500,000 a year, taking into account all forms of taxes from income to capital gains to sales tax, property tax, and all of it. All right. The person earns $500,000 per year for 50 years. They're a W-2 earner, not self-employed. They live in a moderate tax state. They invest part of their income realizing capital gains. They own a home and pay property tax. They spend a portion of their after-tax income subject to sales tax. This is a lot here. I'm just going to scroll down.
Yeah, and keep scrolling. Million different tax line items there.
Yeah. Look, now this person has $1.5 million home. They're assuming they spend about $150,000 a year for sales taxes. Total estimated taxes over a lifetime, $10 million. $10 million. Literally half of their total earnings is taken by taxes. And And why do we go to war against England again? 1%, 2% tax on tea? You've literally voted yourselves into slavery.
Yeah.
No wonder only 1%. No wonder it's less than 1% that accomplished this, because you have the mob stealing half of everything you've ever earned. The entire way. This is nuts.
Hard to
and I don't want to be a liar. It's not 10 million. It's $9,978,120.
We're always transparent around here.
That's right. Holy Toledo Batman. Hey, I'm going to, yeah. So again, if you wanted to follow along at home, just type in how much taxes would the government collect over the lifetime off of a person making $500,000 per year, taking into account all forms of taxes from income to capital gains to sales and property tax. And that'll give you some really wild reading. So
that's before any estate taxes.
Yeah, that's before the estate tax. So they're going to have accumulated, right?
More after they die.
Now seriously, half of what they've earned's been taken before they die. And then you're going to, what? Take another 40% of whatever they managed to claw and hang on to above $7 or $14 million. They probably don't even have $7 or $14 million at that point.
Because they already paid $10 million.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yep.
Well, another provision that's set to expire that currently is in place that negatively affects rich people is the state and local income tax deduction. So under this Tax Cuts Act, that's set to $10,000. So what this is saying is if someone over the course of a year,
the SALT tax, right?
Yeah. So if someone over the course of the year pays $20,000 in state and local income taxes, then you can deduct up to $10,000 of that off your federal income.
Yeah.
And beforehand, that was unlimited. So you could deduct, if you had $20,000, you could deduct $20,000 off your federal or more.
Yeah.
And so obviously people in high tax states like California, New York, any of these other states with high, state tax rates, they're deducting a lot off their federal. But with this, that's stopping them a decent amount.
Yeah, and so this might be the I wonder if our mics picked that up. I brought all three of my dogs to the office today. I think we're going to drop a video clip of them attacking me and licking me. But they got into the garbage, I think, multiple times, and they've been puking and farting.
It's going to smell like shit here in a sec.
That's right. So I don't know if the mics picked that up, but we could hear it, and we have headsets on. So I would imagine
pretty loud.
Jeez. All right. Look. Yeah. So again, this might be the one time where I'm going to sound like a hypocrite, right? Because I just said I'm for any tax cut ever. I don't care who it's to. I don't care what your reasoning is. Cut the taxes. This is the one time I'm going to step away from that. Okay. And the reason why is because I also believe in putting responsibility on the correct shoulders of who should carry it. Right. And I don't know what California or New York senator was able to slip this bullshit through, but all it's allowing states like California and New York to do is tax the shit out of their people and pawn it off on all the rest of us. Now, their argument's going to be that those states contribute more in total taxes to the federal government than any others. Sure, that's true. Not saying it's not, but you're alleviating the pain to those people most in a position to affect change within their own state by letting them deduct it against their federal taxes.
Yeah.
So forget capping it at 10. It should be capped at 0. Nobody should, and because then also there's states like California, not California, like Texas, Florida. These states somehow manage to thrive. Literally the two most states that seem to be raging successes is Florida and Texas. And they have no state income tax, and they're bastions of conservatism with small pockets of liberalism.
Yeah, it is pretty crazy. Looking at a state like California with the top marginal bracket of 13.3%, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah,
and then you got states like Texas.
Yeah, and I'm gonna. My argument against this is the same that it is for immigration. And I'm not against all immigration. But I really feel like there's a lot of validity to the brain drain argument, whereby allowing the best and the brightest to flee their countries and come to America, we're shoring ourselves up while draining that country of its single most important resource that would affect change and improve that nation's circumstances. Well, we're basically this salt tax by letting people, the people most likely to force their government to get their budgets in line and to actually operate in a fiscally responsible manner to deduct all those state taxes against their federal income tax. They're pawning that off on all the rest of us and alleviating the pain that they should be suffering, that should be driving them to fix their state. So,
yeah. One thing I did want to look up is the amount of revenues that these states are getting, like a state like California.
What do you mean? How much do they contribute?
Just off their state income tax. Just because with such a high marginal rate. That was just something that was like popping up in my head. Yeah. So ChatGPT just showed me 2023, but fiscal year 2023, California collected approximately $220 billion in tax revenue.
Yeah, and I don't know about 20.
But that I think that's all revenue. So I think 84 billion of that is from personal income tax receipts. But that's halfway through the year. So yeah, I guess the 220.
Yeah, and so like I know that California absolutely contributes more to the federal government than it gets.
That's just the state income tax.
Yeah,
I was just curious.
But again, right? It's funny to me how people can't. This is one of the greatest tricks that's pulled off on people. Okay, when you're getting any kind of information, we kind of just did it here, and I want to correct it real quick, right? So we were having one conversation about people's contribution to the federal income tax. And when we talked about the individuals contributing, we talked about it from the frame point or the framework of percentages of income, not dollar amounts, right?
Yeah.
So here's what's interesting, right? So in fiscal year 2020, the federal government collected $467 billion in tax revenue from California. In the same period, it received $143 in federal transfers, accounting to 14.5% of the state's total revenues. So it says this indicates California contributes significantly more in federal taxes than it receives in federal funding. I would tell you that's the absolute wrong framework for that answer, right? What I would want to know is the same thing with individuals, right? What percentage of federal revenue is California contributing to in comparison to other states, right? To their percentage of their gross domestic product, right?
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to ask that. Hang on. Yeah, so this would definitely require more research to do, right? It's just interesting. They want to say the same thing, right? Determining the exact percentage of each state's gross domestic product contributed to federal tax revenue is challenging due to limited publicly available data. However, it's generally observed that states with higher per capita incomes and larger economies tend to contribute more in federal taxes relative to their GDP. I know shit, so do individuals, right? But the question is, what percentage of that GDP is going back to the federal government, right? So you could have a small state, that has low per capita incomes, right? Maybe Mississippi, Louisiana. And I'm not trying to pick on Arkansas. I'm not trying to pick on them, right? But
yeah, much different in
Kansas.
California.
Let's just say Kansas, we're in one, right? But it would be really interesting to note what percentage of that is going back to the federal government, right? because it might be a greater percentage for a smaller state, and California may be contributing more money, but it might be a much smaller percentage.
Yeah.
And if you're going to tell me it's not fair that an individual, if you're going to tell me it's fair for an individual to contribute a larger percentage of their income, then it also has to be equally fair for your state to have to. But anyways,
I think that's a interesting perspective.
Yeah, and my perspectives are always right in my own head.
So it's like it's the same in 2015, but 16.6% of their gross state product was paid in taxes. California.
To the federal government?
Yeah. Although I was really quickly looking this up, so I'm trying to make sure. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's something that we definitely look more into.
Yeah.
Because now we're kind of just off on a tangent here.
Yep. You know me.
So
That's
cycling,
my middle name.
working our way back into this.
Yeah. Anyways,
we're still,
take salt tax to zero. Don't let anybody from New York, Massachusetts, California deduct their state taxes against the federal government and watch them work on their state taxes real quick.
that, or they'll just move right out.
Well, shit tons of them are. Last year, California had a net negative growth.
Well, I think it's been like that for a while, actually. Because like I lived out there for a couple of years, and I remember that being a topic of conversation quite a bit.
Yep.
That California was like losing like a net amount of people, even though we were just moving in at the time. And then 2 years later, we moved out. But they're losing a lot. And
I guess where they're going.
The number one reason is because of taxes.
Just taxes, and I mean, just look at how well their tax dollars are being used.
Well, and I think another big reason is combination between like COVID and California, just because like COVID really started the whole idea of remote work. And so many people were living in California. It's nice out there. Don't get me wrong.
No, it's stunning.
But
it's gorgeous.
Like, a lot of these jobs are remote jobs anyway, so they might as well move to like Florida, where it's also warm. They can be at the beach and then pay zero income or state income tax.
Yep.
So I think that is definitely a big reason why. In fact, I know people out there that did exactly that.
Absolutely. I mean, this whole company's moving out of California.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why Austin has turned into the like Silicon Valley of.
And Elon got out of California.
Oh, I mean, Facebook opened up a huge facility in Austin. Elon did. I mean, I'm pretty sure a lot of the tech companies have.
Yeah. So moving on with the provision. So another one that's set to expire is the mortgage interest deduction. So right now it's set at $750,000. So if you got a mortgage of up to $750,000 or more, you can deduct $750,000. So interest payments on those on that mortgage. So if you got a $10 million house, you can deduct $750,000. You got a $500,000 house, you can deduct up to the amount, so $500,000. And if that expires, it just goes back to $1 million. So not a big change, but this is one that hurts the wealthy a little bit, but not as impactful maybe as the previous.
Yeah.
And then lastly, the pass-through deduction. So right now, we have a 20% deduction for small businesses. So if you got a small business that has $100,000 of qualified business income, you can deduct 20,000 of that, 20%. And so just like paying tax on 80.
Yeah.
So I think you agree that's.
Like I said, I'm 100% for every single kind of tax break, tax deduction, tax loophole, tax strategy,
tax evasion.
Just
kidding.
Our lawyers make us call it tax deferral.
Exactly. So yeah.
What's our motto? Protect asses, evade taxes, baby.
Damn right.
I mean, protect assets and defer taxes. Something like that. It's one of the two.
So as you can see, a common theme is, I think for the most part, both agree that we appreciate lower taxes. So, for the most part.
Yeah, because again, it puts the responsibility on your governing morons to actually do things correctly and stop funneling money to every Tom, Dick, and Harry that comes up with some cockamamie scheme to get some of it.
Yeah. You're not wrong.
So.
And so I think in a perfect world, Trump would love to just extend these permanently.
Yeah.
But
like I got a question for you, right? Let's just say I was this very compassionate, altruistic person. Of course, not with my own money, with everybody else's money.
Yeah.
I would never be that way with my own money. So I want to ensure that the money I'm taking from one group of people is able to help the people most needed for the longest amount of time, right? Would I be able to accomplish that if there's massive bureaucratic bloat and expenses and inefficiencies, and I'm not managing that money correctly, and I'm not making sure that when people die, payments stop, and that when people aren't qualified, they're not receiving them, and that people can't scam the system? I mean, like, I don't care how little it's being done, right? Wouldn't I, as the wonderfully compassionate, altruistic person I am with your money, want to make sure that all that's being done?
In a perfect world, everybody would just go out and donate 30% of their income to any cause and actually make good use of the money versus the government taking care of it and wasting
money. Well, yeah, because another core principle of mine is that it's the people closest to the source of the problem that are in the best position to fix the problem. And the farther you get from the problem, the harder it becomes to fix the problem. All right? And I was actually at the KU has the Bob Dole Center of Politics, or I don't know what it's called, but something involving Bob Dole and politics, and it's at KU. And I was out there for Representative Sharice Davids to talk. And she told this story that I thought sums up government perfectly, right? She was up on an Indian reservation, I think in North or South Dakota, and there was this program that the government had created to fund money to people that were at risk and had needs in that part of those states, right? And because of the way the program was written, it excluded certain people. And she saw that, and she saw these people that needed this support and needed this help weren't able to get it because the shoddy way in which this legislation or this program was created and written. So, of course, in my mind, my question was, so there's two options at that point. A, go to government and be the first person in the history of humanity to craft a perfect piece of legislation that has no unintended consequences, loopholes, or fallacies. Me, myself, I would never assume I'm intelligent enough to do that. Or, to me, the alternative would be quit wasting your money, cut the government, get it out of it, and actually roll up my sleeves and get to work helping those people in ways that because I'm right there, I can see it. I know who needs the help, right? Now, I mean, I guess the third option is the government funneling money to some's better than none in some people's mind, not mine, but so I don't know. I just thought it was a really interesting story. And it was really interesting takeaway. And it was one of the catalysts for her getting into politics because she wanted to go to Washington and make legislation more all-encompassing to help more and more people. So hopefully she's accomplishing that for herself.
And so, as I was saying, Trump would probably love to extend this permanently. But, of course, to do so, you need approval from Congress.
I thought he disbanded Congress and took control of the whole government. That hasn't happened yet?
According to media, maybe, but not in reality.
Oh,
and so for something like this.
Dang it.
For some.
Okay. He just walked in here. He's got his shirt. I guess I can't really smell it yet over here.
Yeah, we're used to it at this point.
Our dogs have hotboxed us in this room, and Aiden comes in with his shirt pulled up over his face.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So there's a couple ways something like this can get extended. And so a permanent extension would require basically the government to prove that.
Yeah, they have to offset. They have to offset the because
it adds to the deficit more than 10 years out.
Yeah, because what do they call that? They call that a cost.
Yeah, so
that's such bullshit.
yeah, and so it's something called the Bird Rule that basically says that you can't implement anything that 10 years down the road or more that's going to add anything to the deficit.
Yeah,
which is this would, and so
yeah.
the only way to get around the Bird Rule would be to get 60 votes in the Senate, so 60%.
So here, riddle me this. How's the deficit increasing at $1.9 trillion?
Yeah,
If nobody's adding anything, that causes the deficit to grow. I mean, I know that's not really how the Bird Rule works. I just think it's hilarious.
well,
I just think it's a bullshit rule.
Already,
I know. I'm just sitting here going, we're at $1.9 trillion. It's an unfathomable number, right? We already talked about it. You put it out on, on our socials.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I guess just trying to slow the destruction.
Freaking stupid.
Budget. Yeah. Because this is projected to decrease federal revenues by $4.2 trillion over the course of 10 years. And then when accounting for potential growth, it's expected around approximately $3.5 trillion of adding to the deficit. And so basically getting extended permanently is not going to happen. But what's expected to happen is just extending it temporarily. So in this case, maybe 5 years. And all we'd need to get that passed would just be a simple majority in the Senate, so 51 votes, which is very possible. And that basically kicks it to the next candidate, the next president. So looking like maybe J.D. Vance, maybe Kamala Harris, one of them. So, but yeah, at least get these extended for 5 years.
Yeah.
Are there any of these in particular that, other than that state and local income tax, the state and local tax deduction, any of the other ones that you just want to get rid of?
Oh, no. I mean, most of them are all like, keeping the tax cuts in place.
Yeah.
Which I'm all for, with the exception of the SALT one, because I think the SALT one is I already went over it all.
Yeah.
So no, I think we're good there.
Nice. All right. And then one thing that we've talked about on a previous podcast, but I think it's good to kind of go over it again and get a better perspective on it, is that part of this Tax Cuts Act was the lowering of the tax rate to 21%. So that's what it's at right now. And now Trump's looking to lower that to 20% and then all the way down to 15% for companies that manufacture in America.
Yes.
And so we've already talked about that and kind of how it might go hand in hand pretty well with the tariffs.
Yeah, right. I mean, this is genius, actually, right? Because if I put tariffs on certain, right? Well, one, we know that increased taxation motivates companies to move money offshore, move production offshore.
Yeah.
Right. We actually saw when these tax cuts were passed, we saw corporations in America in a single year move $1 trillion. I think it was at least $1 trillion back into the United States, right? So when our taxes were higher than, when they were at, what were they at, 28? What were they at before he lowered them? He lowered them to 21, 35. So at 35%, right? It's very, look. In fact, there's a cabal of people who are trying to create a global minimum corporate tax. Okay, and this is the reason why. All right, because there's countries like Luxembourg and Ireland with a 1% corporate tax rate. And so if I'm a big enough company, it would behoove me to create a subsidiary in Ireland or Luxembourg.
Yep.
And that company's just going to magically have expenses that equal my U.S.-based company's profits. All those profits are going to flow to Ireland or Luxembourg, and now I pay 1% on them instead of paying freaking 35% here.
Yeah.
The problem is it's very difficult to get that money back into America. All right, so it just keeps stockpiling outside the United States, and it's not getting deployed here, and it's not benefiting Americans. Right? It's all bad. But it's what happens when the government does this. All right? So when these tax cuts got put into place, companies were finally able to really kick off a ton of innovation, a ton of expansion. They bought back their stock prices, which everybody on the left screamed and yelled about how that only helped the rich people. Bullshit. Every single retiree who's got an IRA, 401k, obviously we already went over it. It's only the top half of America for some reason. They all benefited by the value of the stock market going up. I think it went up like 25% that year or something. Well, that doesn't just help them, because that money's not just sitting there for no reason. That's the money that they're using to pay their mortgages, pay their car payments, pay their gas, buy their chips, their drinks, go to the movies, pay the lawn care guy, pay their cleaning service, pay the pool boy, pay their water bill, the electric bill, the gas bill, the internet bill, their TV bill, go on vacations, rent Airbnbs, get their lattes, right? Like that's all money, like that value, that increase in value allowed retirees in America to spend significantly more money. So it was a pretty amazing thing that happened when this corporate tax rate got put into place.
Yeah.
And again, too, another point that I try to hammer home to everybody is it's not possible for a corporation to ever pay a penny in taxes, right? So it's like if I'm, and we, it's funny having this conversation a second time because I feel like I'm repeating myself, and I normally try not to do that to people, but now we have to because it's the first time, right? So if I'm McDonald's and I'm selling a 99-cent cheeseburger, and the federal government decides we're going to tax that cheeseburger by 10 cents, you think the price stays at $1? You think as McDonald's, so restaurants run 3 to 5% profit margins. 3 to 5%. Now this gets me to another thing, the bullshit no tax on tips nonsense. Another pandering bullshit idea. But anyways, and I love that one because you struck a vein when both sides jump on top of it. Like I'm pretty sure the minute Trump said that, Kamala was not to be outdone in the free giveaways. And she piled on as well.
Yep.
All right. It's stupid regardless of who's saying it. We'll get into that as well. But if I'm a corporation, I'm selling that burger and there's a 10% tax on it, I'm not going to keep my price at $1 and lose and somehow figure out how to make up 10%. And then if the government raises it to 15 or 20 or 28 or 35, I'm not going down to 65 cents. The price of my burger's going up. So when everybody wants to scream, that was hilarious. Kamala on the campaign trail was wanting to raise the corporate tax rate to 28% while claiming that Trump's tariffs were going to increase inflation. No, I'll tell you what would increase inflation. 28% taxes on everything every corporation in America sells, tries to produce, against their net profitability. Like that's going to drive prices up. And by the way, it drives everything up. And the only benefit you could make an argument for that would provide is more government bullshit programs that are wildly ineffectual and sorely lacking. Now, on the other hand, tariffs, when I do tariffs, is that going to drive prices up? Sure. Up until the point that the tariff is so painful, the company moves their production inside the United States, avoids the tariff, and creates American jobs.
And pays a lower tax rate. But now we have more jobs and more production taking place with which that lower tax rate is being collected on. So it's just funny. If you're going to, there's two very distinct options. And it blows my mind that everybody is so anti these tariffs. Yeah. So. I mean, I think the tariffs and the tax rate together perfectly sum up the America First.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so it's like we shouldn't be paying a single L. And also, back to the people that don't contribute to federal income tax, they are also the bulk of spending in America. The lowest 50% income earners in America account for 60% of all consumption. So if you're going to sit here and try and tell me, like, this is what blows my mind, right? It's like one half has never like owned a company. I just don't get it, right? If you're going to try and tell me that corporations are bad, they're evil, they're faceless, they're nameless, they're just profiting off the backs of the American people, right? Well, do they employ nothing but Elon Musk's robots, right? Who's their products being purchased by, right? So when I add a 28% income tax, or not income tax, but a 28% tax on businesses, and I'm driving their price up, it's those lowest half who just got hit with that inflated cost of those goods and services. The people that are least in a position to afford it. So if you really wanted to help the lowest 50% of Americans, you'd reduce the corporate tax rate to 0. And if you want to, because you love class warfare and shitting all over anybody that earned their money through business, while loving every musician, rapper, artist, it's like weird to me, the categories that one half of the country feels is okay to have gotten rich. If you're Taylor Swift, if you're Beyonce, if you're Oprah, oh, hallelujah. If you're the company that actually produces and publishes and delivers Oprah's TV show, you're an evil corporation.
Yeah.
But if you're Oprah the billionaire, yeah, you're a wonderful person, right? If you're T Swizzle, you're a wonderful person. You can be a billionaire. If you're the company that actually got her there, fuck you.
Yeah.
Right?
And just don't be a billionaire on the right.
Yeah. Definitely don't be a billionaire trying to make our government more efficient. Like, I mean, what kind of evil Nazi fascist are you? Oh, and definitely don't do the same motion everybody does. I'm not even don't do that. On stage like every single Tim Waltz did.
I think anybody talk about that motion. I think anybody making a big deal of that is just denying. And they know damn well if you watch Elon Musk in any conversation, he is kind of awkward with his voice, awkward with his hands, and so that's just
isn't the dude on the spectrum or something?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't know exactly, so I don't want to speak on it.
No, I don't either. But yeah, whatever he is, I wish I was some of it.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah, bro, for real.
Oh, jeez.
I could definitely use some of that.
Holy cow, just cheapers, right?
Yeah.
But yeah. So I just think that if you want to sit here and claim that you're trying to help the poor in America, you would take the corporate tax rate down to 0. And like I said, if you wanted to engage in class warfare like one half of the country loves to do, it's like their favorite national pastime, then fine. Leave taxes on companies producing yachts, diamonds, high-end cars. I mean, I don't know, right? Pick and choose your nonsense that you think nobody should be allowed to have unless you're an artist. Then you're allowed to have it. But all the rest of us, you're not allowed to have it. So keep taxes on that and reduce corporate taxes on all of the corporations to 0. You would see a huge benefit to the lowest 50% of income earners in America.
Yeah. It's a brilliant idea. I'm telling you, the government just needs to start watching our podcast.
That's right. Yes, they do.
It's only our second or third.
Come on, Doge. Come on, Doge.
Got a good.
Where were we before I had a panic that I was forgetting to take my kids to cheer and dance?
Oh, I was just starting on talking about.
Did you see that shot I just made?
Made it very nice.
Very
nice.
Yeah.
Just as a comparison figure, now even before Trump's lowering the taxes further, we've got the second lowest corporate tax rates out of all the G7 countries.
Nice.
And after he lowers them further, it'll be the lowest. And then on the flip side of Kamala Harris being elected, we would be on.
Yeah, and guess whose country has been pulling away from all those other countries ever since 2020? America.
Yep.
Fuck yeah.
So I thought that was cool. How much that matters, I don't know. But I think it puts in a good, I don't know, just good picture to see. Because I think all things considered, I would like to be on the lower end of that, just to be competitive.
Yeah, absolutely. You want America to be the place people want to come.
Yeah.
Right? You don't want to be California where you have more people leaving than coming.
Because we see that exactly happening, the effect of high tax, high regulation.
California has tons of incredible things about it, right? I mean, seriously. I mean, from the mountains and the national parks and the oceans and the economy, the businesses that are there, right? So why do they have more people leaving than coming? I mean, that, is that what we want to be as a country? No.
Yeah. And I too think just for the future of our country to have an inflow of business and manufacturers versus an outflow is a pretty big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. And if anybody would like to read up on something, there's a book called San Francisco by Michael Schellenberger. He is a raging left winger, who one day looked at his wife and went, "Why do all of our policies result in disaster?" And it caused him to go down a path of introspection.
Yep.
And mindful openings,
and
whatever that word would be.
And that guy's on the left, and he's opening his mind to stuff. I think that's good for anybody.
Absolutely.
It's just like
I used to be
anything you're talking about. Just question yourself.
Yeah, I used to be very pro death penalty, and then I went down a rabbit hole, and I'm very anti death penalty. And I don't know how many people on the right are super anti death penalty. I'm very much against it, and I don't think it aligns with any conservative's values.
Yeah.
But now I know that was a shift in my perspective and thought. Right?
Yeah. And there might be some things that, like you said, like you believed one thing and you actually did some more like digging and you turned out to believe quite the opposite.
Yeah.
That's another thing. Cause like death penalty for me, I don't have a strong opinion on it because that's one I've never really dug into.
Yeah.
So I don't even really know truly my belief because.
Yeah. And so I always recommend to people, right? Before trying to figure out where you stand on any given issue, identify what your core values are. Right. And so this is one of the areas in which I feel our Department of Education, that hopefully gets shut down and done away with here, really, really, really lacks. Right. How many kids understand the why behind the different aspects of our Constitution? Anyone? Does anyone know?
Probably hardly. Yeah.
I mean, is there a single public school system out there that has anybody reading Bastille's The Law? Right? I think that's what it's called. I've read so many of these books, it's hard for me to keep them all track. Right? But like, these are the books that our founding fathers read themselves and gained a lot of the ideas that came to form our Constitution. Right? So anyways, I just think it would be a really good idea. And so that's the reason why I was able to come to a change of heart and change of mind in regards to the death penalty, is because I had my foundational principles laid down, and those don't change. They shouldn't change. You should identify what those are. Those should be rock solid. And once that foundation is laid, then you can start to look at issues by issue, and you can assess whether or not that issue and your stance on it fits within that framework or fits on top of that foundation that you already laid, right? And so for me, it was just quite simply, I believe that the greatest minority in need of protecting from the mob, which is the government, right, is the individual. And I don't believe we should ever give the government or the mob the ability to execute and take an individual's life. I just don't. Separate from war, from the military, I still don't think the military should have the right to take a U.S. citizen's life. And I don't think that our law enforcement should have the right to take a citizen's life, right? So I don't care. Like, I'm wildly against what happened to Derek Chauvin. Wildly against that. But I also don't want my law enforcement running around ending people's lives. Like, we're all citizens here. And I definitely don't think that, I mean, if in an act of criminal action, right, if you're out there shooting somewhere up and the cops got to come in and gun you down, hey, that's a whole different situation. But it's like funny to me that conservatives want to talk about how ineffectual and corrupt the government is at every level, but somehow they got the legal process in convicting you and putting you onto death row, correct?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good perspective. It's like,
I mean,
it's pretty serious.
Yeah.
And that ultimately is.
Yeah. And we're willing to pay for every other nutbag program out there. We can't pay for some guy to stay on in prison for the rest of his life. And
they're already on death row for so long anyways.
I mean, yeah, exactly. What's another decade?
Yeah, you hear about, exactly. You're talking about decades, so.
Yeah. Anyways.
Bringing up good points.
Yeah. Wildly off topic.
So, yeah.
But I'm just pointing out, like, you should be capable of like evolving as a human as you get older, and there's nothing wrong. I think the most beautiful thing anybody can ever do is go, holy shit, I was wrong.
I agree.
So
I definitely agree. So prior to that, just kind of comparing Trump versus Kamala in comparison.
You have the hardest task in the world. That's keeping me on track.
In comparison to the G7 countries. And then just briefly going over a couple of the other policies given by Kamala Harris on the campaign trail.
Yes.
Include the child tax credit. So she was also in favor of a higher tax.
It's a giveaway.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. And she was outdoing JD
No
Vance by 1,000.
No wonder she was with Oprah. You get free money.
Yeah.
You get free money. You
Exactly.
get free money.
So she was the advocate for a $6,000 tax credit for children under the age of 1.
Yeah, because JD Vance said 5.
Yeah. And then
I see your 5, I raise you 6.
$3,600 for ages 2 to 5 and $3,000 for children over the age of 5.
I always thought that Democrats thought the younger the life was, the less value it had.
Yeah.
Not the other way around.
Yeah.
That's an abortion joke.
It is an abortion. And so pretty similar. I mean, JD Vance also kind of the same boat. He hasn't really released any more info whether he would,
Hopefully
tone it down as they get older. But so there's that. And then of course the capital gains rate, 28%. And then also she was corporate tax rate 28%, but also the capital gains rate. She wanted to bump that top marginal bracket up to 28%.
Yeah.
And that'd be for quite wealthy people. So not to get those two confused, but yeah, both corporate tax rate and the capital gains rate, also both 28%.
Yeah.
So I don't know where the magic comes from 28, but that's the lucky number.
Apparently it was on an episode of Sesame Street.
Something like
and
that.
It stuck.
And then also she had a 25% minimum tax on individuals with a net worth of over $100 million.
Yeah. This is the most insane bullshit.
And so where it gets insane is the unrealized capital gains. This includes any income that you make, just if your net worth is $100 million. So you are wealthy, but it's still stupid in theory. So out of all your income,
it's mind-blowingly
so
dumb.
let's say we make I don't know, $10 million or something like that, and for whatever reason you pay $1 million in tax.
Yeah.
You're required to pay at least
2.5.
2.5.
No, 25.
Yeah,
No, 10 million.
Well, yeah,
2.5.
you're right. Yeah.
So if you were able to somehow use the tax code to lower your net effective tax rate down to 10% of your income, which would be $1 million.
Yeah.
They're saying that the new minimum tax would be you'd have to pay another 1.5 for no freaking reason other than
it's just this.
You're an asshole who figured out how to make $10 million in a year.
Exactly. And that's pretty rough. And that, like I said, including capital gains. So I think
unrealized capital gains.
Unrealized.
And that's where look. So let's just separate these two things out, right? Because at least with the income, right?
Capital gains makes sense. Not that I'm in favor of increasing it, but at least it's like.
At least
it's within reality.
It's freaking possible, right? I got $10 million, right? So I'm going to introduce you all to a concept that the IRS has. It's called constructive receipt. Okay, if I have not taken constructive receipt of money, I don't have it.
Exactly.
That means I can't pay you.
You literally have to sell off your assets just to pay it.
Exactly.
And those assets can still go down as you're paying tax on something that might not be worth anything. But you
and
actually want to go sell
when
it.
You're being forced to liquidate something, it drops the value of it. So you're going to assign a value to me at this point in time, force me to sell it. The value is going to drop. I'm not going to get most likely what you valued it at.
Oh, definitely.
And then I've lost that money, and then I could even achieve a larger drop the following year. Okay, and so we actually looked at this from 2020 to 2025. Elon Musk's net worth has yo-yoed. Okay? Big time.
Yeah.
He suffered a $200 million loss in a single year and a $170 million loss over a period of years. Okay, so that's $370 billion. Yeah, 200 billion. I might have said million. 200 billion in one single year. And then like 170 billion over a few years. So in both those instances, Kamala Harris would have taxed him the year before on $200 billion that a year later he didn't have. And she would have taken $50 billion from him. And a year, 12 months later, he doesn't have any of the $200 billion.
Yeah.
So you're going to give it back? Nope. And then she would have taken another 25% of $170 billion that a couple years later he didn't have.
Yeah.
And you're fucking with the markets too, because the only way he's getting that is he's got to liquidate $50 billion.
Yeah, when you're selling that much, that actually can have an impact.
Oh, yeah.
Especially when your name's Elon Musk.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so I think this would be a good time to point something out to people. Who's the guy that owns the basketball team in Texas?
Mark Cuban?
Yeah, Mark Cuban. Mark Cuban said one of the dumbest things I've ever heard uttered in my entire life. He had to stroke a check for $168 million in taxes last year. It's the largest tax bill he's ever had to pay. And in an interview, trying to suck up and pander to people, I guess, because I don't know how you could honestly believe this, especially at his level. He said that this is the second most patriotic thing you could do next to serving in the military.
Paying your taxes?
Paying your taxes. Okay? Now, let's just go to somebody significantly smarter, more educated, and knowledgeable than he is and see what they have to say on it, right? So there is a federal circuit court judge. His name is a very weird name. It's Learned Hand. Okay, he is the single most cited judge by the United States Supreme Court over 200 times. There is no more authority on taxation in America. Okay? What does he say about you paying taxes?
I'm guessing he's got a different stance.
He says anyone may so arrange his affairs that his taxes shall be as low as possible. He is not bound to choose the pattern which will best pay the treasury. There is not even a patriotic duty to increase one's taxes.
That's saying something.
Now, you want to know how you know Mark Cuban's a liar and he doesn't even believe what he said? Because I can prove it right here, right now.
Try to get out of taxes?
No.
What happened?
On every single person's tax return, there's a box you can check. And you can pay any additional amount your heart desires. So if paying $168 million is the second most patriotic thing a person can do,
might as well put more in.
I don't see him joining the military. So you're not patriotic enough to do that. And I don't see you checking the box and contributing extra money for no reason whatsoever to the federal government, which is supposedly, according to you, the second most patriotic thing you can do. So I'd ask Mark Cuban, what, you hate America? Or are you full of shit? And I'm going to guess the second one. You're just full of shit.
Yeah.
Or start checking that box and start dropping checks for more tax dollars.
What's an extra million at that point?
Yeah, what's an extra 5? What's an extra 10? Come on, man. Show us how patriotic you are. Yeah. I want to see it. Check the box and drop the stack. Let's go.
Yeah, it's kind of goofy.
Or shut up.
Not many times do you actually hear people like praising the act of paying taxes.
Yeah. No, because he's a pandering fool. Yeah. He's in an interview. He's on national television. Hey, watch this. Watch me. Like, he clearly wants the accolades of society, right? Which is why he's on Shark Tank and the rest of the stuff, right? So how do you get that? Pander to society. Same way J.D. Vance is doing with his bullshit child tax credit. The same way Kamala's doing with every other fucking free giveaway she comes up with, right?
Yeah. And
just like him saying this most patriotic thing somebody could do other than join the military. Yeah, you're full of shit.
Yeah. Talking about more pandering, another one of her proposals was that startup tax deduction from increasing from 5,000 to 50,000. So nice 10x on that.
Wait, say it again. The startup tax
deduction? Like if you're starting up a business, small business. Yeah. So you start it up, you get right now $5,000 tax credit.
Yeah.
But if she was elected, she was running on 50,000. So just 10 times.
Sweet. You know what? I just had an idea. Can I just start up 5 companies every year? And
I take that back. Tax deduction. So deduction to income. So you'd have to have some income on that. But yes.
On the business or
on the business. I think, on the business.
That specific business?
Yeah, I believe so. I would think.
It doesn't apply to whatever other business I have?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, let's find out.
Let's see exactly how it would work. Yeah, that'd be a tax deduction. So indirectly give them free money by, not having to pay as much in tax.
Okay, so it does say Section 195 of the IRS code applies only to the business for which the startup costs were incurred. These expenses can be deducted only against the income of that specific business once it becomes active. Oh, I guarantee you I could get around this.
Yeah, as with probably a lot of things.
I mean, just think about it, right? I can, like, let's say I had service contracts, right? I could start up a business. I could easily just transfer those startup contracts over to the new business, take the deduction.
Yeah.
And I can just rinse and repeat probably. I want to see if I can, I'm going to spend more time to see if I can figure this out.
The IRS isn't.
All right, so and so let me tell you something else about taxes and people with money. Okay, and so I present this idea all the time to people. Okay, what if you could form a think tank, and you went and you got 1,000 smartest people on the planet, right, to craft the single most epic piece of tax legislation. Use all the AI, all the quantum computing, all the massive computers out there, and you crafted this 100,000-page tax bill that thought of every conceivable scenario, every conceivable way to evade it, loophole it, use it in ways that you wouldn't expect or consider initially, right? The minute you hit print on that, guess what happens? 1 million morons like me go to work against it. It's like a brute force hack. We might not have the 1,000 smartest people crafting that legislation. We might not have all your fancy computers and everything, but there's millions of us looking at that tax code and thinking of things you've never thought of and none of your computers ever have either.
Yeah, you're thinking of stuff that doesn't even exist
I
yet.
guarantee you we win every time.
Yeah.
Every time. Every time. Every time.
We'll have to see one day when every tax proposal is done completely with AI, thinking of every possibility.
I guarantee
we'll
you
find out.
The millions of us common man who are out there that are literally the backbone of this country, creating the jobs, paying the taxes that half of the country apparently doesn't pay. I guarantee you we win every time.
We'll do whatever the hell it takes to get
Absolutely. Even if I got to freaking create shell companies in Ireland.
Damn right. And then last one that was pretty unique to Kamala Harris is she wanted to increase the excise tax on stock buybacks. And so right now there's a 1% excise tax. Yeah. So meaning if they buy $1 billion of whatever their company's shares are, they basically have to pay $1.01 billion.
Yeah.
So an extra 1%.
Why would I not want to hurt a company that's doing something that's increasing retirees' portfolios and allowing them to be safer in retirement, make more money, and live their lives?
The idea is like it's a disincentivize like companies from doing that. Yeah.
Because
buying back stock, and they want to focus on stuff that's going to generate more organic growth. So growth in the company that'll eventually drive up stock prices. That does not,
because they think stock buybacks are somehow negative, right?
Yeah, they would consider that more artificial growth.
Yeah, exactly, because they're government leeches, right, that are completely devoid of reality and market forces, and they don't understand that the most common thing ever for an entity that's not a government entity to do is to expand and contract. Like, it's the nature of the stock market, it's the nature of any real entity or organization. It expands, it contracts, it expands, it contracts. So the pool of my stock grows and grows and grows. Sometimes we'll fold it back in. Sometimes we'll split it. Sometimes we'll buy it back. Sometimes we issue more. I mean, it's the nature of the beast, right? And then some jackass that knows nothing about it, who's sucked off the government tit their entire life. I mean, look at the length of time these people spend in government. They don't know shit about business. You think Joe Biden, the guy ever do anything other than leech off the back of the American people? And somehow they call it service.
Yeah.
That blows my mind. Who really? One of the highest paying jobs, most likely to turn you into the 1% that they despise. I mean, I can't think of any more guaranteed route to becoming one of the 1% than going into government service.
Yeah, they get mysteriously rich.
Yeah.
Just like Elon Musk.
I mean, just insanely wealthy.
Yeah, Elon
right?
Musk talking about that
1% of Americans. They gain net worth that are in the top 1% of America. Ocasio-Cortez, is she already there?
I think know her net worth. Let's see. She's young, though.
Oh, I know she's young. And it's so easy to hide this stuff.
Well, yeah. This seems almost incorrect. In her, this can't be right. AOC reported assets between $3,000 and $3.45,000, including a 401k pension plan and a student loan debt of at least $15,000.
Mm-hmm.
If that's true, then good for her.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But again, right, when they have to report these numbers, you should see the bandwidth that you get to select between, right?
But yeah, I mean, it definitely.
Give her a few years.
And also, regardless of how they attain their wealth, I don't know. Other people would say the same thing about Trump and anybody else, but it does take them a step away from reality. They're representing people who have nothing, most of them.
Yeah,
And,
I mean,
they got Nancy Pelosi net worth between 100 and 200 million, and I think that's probably a low guess.
Yeah, so Yahoo News, the headline is AOC says she's worth less than $500,000 after kickback claims and seems to get kudos from Trump fans in response. Now, don't get me wrong. I want everybody to gain as much wealth as possible, right? I just think it should be through work, intelligent investing, taking risk, adding value, right?
Yeah.
I don't think it should be off access nobody else has to information.
Oh, 1,000%. And I think
that's
why it's good
huge,
that I think that's why it's good that Doge is looking into it, because all you say, if somebody's rich because what they did before they were in Congress, before they were in government, that's cool. If they're rich for any legitimate reason, that's fine. It's just any
yeah, but
anything
I would
else.
even go even further and say so a congressperson's salary. So she's been in for 6 years. Her salary is $174,000 a year, possibly. Okay, that should be public information.
Yeah, that must be a high cost of living if her net worth isn't any higher at this point, because she's been in Congress long enough that even with student loans, how many student loans?
Yeah, and I would say all Congress people's paychecks should be the median of America, like 40, 50 grand a year.
Or median of where they live.
No, because they found out people were scamming that. Do you have any idea how many people were listing themselves as living in a high cost of living area so they could get paid off of that, and then in reality, because they zoom into work, they're living in somewhere with a much lower cost of living.
At least for the Congress people who represent.
Because they're going to claim, because look at so one of the biggest signs of corruption in third world shitholes is you just go look at the Capitol, and if it's the epicenter of wealth in the nation, you've got a real problem. And you go look at Washington D.C. and you look at the cost of living there, you look at the value of the homes there, we got a real problem. And it all starts with all the money flowing to all these people.
Yeah.
But congratulations to her if that information is accurate. But I would like for her to, do well and make money. I just think it shouldn't be through government service.
Yeah, I would agree. I think a lot of people would. I was going to talk a little bit about the no tax on tips, but I think we already kind of covered that a little bit.
I mean, that shit's
pandering.
Yeah, well, no, but let's talk about that for a second,
yeah.
right? Because there's a point that I wanted to make. Okay. Restaurant owners average 3 to 5% profit. So, no offense, I waited tables. I think I still claim it was one of the most difficult jobs I've ever had, and I've deployed to combat. 3 years of combat time. I would still say the waiting tables was, oh my goodness, that was hard. Okay.
I couldn't do it.
Yeah, it's a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
All right. But why are we so bent? Like, it's just, again, there's all these like bullshit perspectives in America, right? Everybody thinks if you own a business, you're wealthy. They look at that business owner running a restaurant. Like, okay, this might sound like crazy numbers, but I had clients that owned about 14 different fast food restaurants. Their net income was $300,000 a year. Now, $300,000 a year puts them in a decent income bracket. Nowhere near the level of risk they're carrying and the headaches they're dealing with. I couldn't believe it. When I saw those numbers,
it's crazy.
I was like, holy shit, sell and quit.
Yeah.
There are so many things you can go do to make $300,000 without all that liability over your head. All that, like the debt of all those buildings. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Right? It is not worth it.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm just sitting there and I'm just like mind blown, right? So here we are. We see this person who's waiting tables, and for some reason, we put them in the good person camp. And we put the owner of the restaurant in the bad person camp. And the owner of the restaurant's trying to scrape by a 3 to 5% profit margin. In the meantime, I'm watching people on the internet post signs at restaurants that if you're not going to tip 30%, don't even bother coming in here to eat. Oh, I don't got a problem with that. Good luck staying in business.
Yeah.
Right?
Makes
Why would the person
money.
waiting tables need to make 20% or 4 to 5 times per dollar of the transaction that the owner of the restaurant's making? And by the way, this is coming from somebody I tip more than anyone you will ever meet.
It's true. I think last time I went out to eat at an actual restaurant, other than last couple times, I remember previously when I worked with you, I think left like a $300 tip on like a $150 bill.
Yeah. Like,
so yeah, actually.
Like I mean, yeah, I wasn't going to get any numbers, but that's fine.
I mean, we're just flexing a little bit.
Yeah. But
I mean,
I literally tip more than anybody.
Oh yeah.
I know.
Yeah,
and I know a lot of people with a lot of money.
Yeah.
Okay. And I still think this whole and this whole like perspective that we have on people. So the reason I do it isn't because I think there's like they're poor, downtrodden, overworked anybody. I do it because I appreciate people who are showing up to work. I appreciate people who are going to grind it out.
Yeah.
And I knew that when I was waiting tables, that was like a second job, right? And I was trying to do something. And I just think most of them are as well. And if I can help them, like, rock on.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. And like you're saying with the pandering, definitely seems like a lot of pandering, especially since
pandering.
Both candidates. So Trump, I think it was in June or July, I think June of 2024, announced it in Las Vegas. And then Kamala Harris followed suit August 24 in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
So it was all particularly a ploy to try to win Nevada, which ended up not even really being a swing state.
Yeah, they claimed it was a swing state, claimed it was going to go to Kamala.
At what point is it not even a swing state anymore? Because Trump won that by over 3%.
Over 3%.
And that's what I consider not to be a swing state anymore,
It is.
in my mind. I don't know what the technical definition would be, but it really ended up not being close. Trump won that state easily, as with most of the swing states. But
hey, I think he won all of them.
He did. Yeah.
Yeah. You know why? I mean, to be honest with you, I just think that, I don't know about you, I've been arrested 4 times. So I think most of us have been, right? I mean, and I just love seeing somebody that represents me, you know? I mean, I know some people want to vote for somebody that looks like them. I just want to vote for somebody that I might have had as a cellmate when I was arrested. And, I look at Trump and I see another fellow person who's been arrested, and I just
Damn
think,
right.
that
Just
guy
like
can-
you.
just like me.
Damn right. Yeah.
We can be cell buddies.
Except he's got a cooler mugshot, though.
Way cooler mugshot. And to my chagrin, out of the 4 times I was arrested, I only got to spend 4 hours in a jail cell.
That's sad.
Yeah, it was. Bummed me out.
That still sounds cool, though.
It does, street cred. Real quick, the reason I spent 4 hours in a jail cell is I didn't mail my license plate back to the state of New Jersey when I moved. No lie.
Bad guy.
True story. And by the way, here's a great one too. It resulted, the timing came together to where I spent 4 hours in a jail cell on my 1-year wedding anniversary.
Really?
Can't even make that shit up. For not mailing my license plate back to the state of New Jersey.
They just pull up to your place of living, or
No,
what?
no. I got pulled over. So New Jersey. So I moved from New Jersey to Kentucky. New Jersey and Kentucky at the time didn't communicate. They're like law enforcement systems, all that didn't communicate. So when my driver's license for New Jersey expired and I got one in the state of Kentucky, they went ahead and just issued it to me. They didn't know that New Jersey had revoked or suspended my driver's license due to failure to return the license plate to the state of New Jersey. I lived in Kentucky for a few years. I moved down to Nashville, Tennessee. A couple months later, my Kentucky license plate had expired. I didn't look at it, and I'd moved and didn't get the mail. Plus, I was very irresponsible. So even if they had sent it to me, I highly doubt I would have renewed my license plate in the first place, right? So I get pulled over for an expired license plate. Hand the cop my driver's license, registration and insurance and all that stuff. He comes back to me and he goes, "Come on, man, you don't got a driver's license." I'm like, "What are you talking about? I just handed it to you." I literally thought I was getting set up for something. Like, I literally just gave it to you. Like, you walked away with it. He's like, that's revoked. I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "It was revoked," and he gave me the date. I'm like, "Dude, seriously? Go look at there's an issue date on my driver's license. Go look at it. It was issued after the date at which you're telling me my license was revoked." Didn't care, got arrested. Now, he didn't take me to jail that day. He assigned me a day to go get processed, right? And that day just happened to fall on my 1-year wedding anniversary. So back when I was still married and thought I was going to stay that way, I always told everybody, for a guy who's just starting off in his marriage, it's pretty fantastic if you set the bar for your anniversaries that low. Because even if you freaking forget a following year, hey, baby, I might have forgot. I ain't in jail.
Damn right.
Right? We're moving up.
Smart man.
Moving up.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's a unfortunate story, but I guess you could at least say you got arrested. So
I got arrested,
cool.
got put in jail.
I can't say that for myself, so
Yeah, well, hang out with me a little bit longer. We can make it happen.
we'll get into some trouble.
That's right.
And then the last thing that I had here is just the Social Security. I know we were talking about hinting at some stuff earlier, but the big thing on Social Security that Trump's looking at, despite what media might say, he's not getting rid of it. He's actually looking to get rid of the taxation of the benefits. And so as of now, up to 85% of the benefits are taxable.
Yeah.
And he's looking at just throwing that away altogether and just giving you tax-free benefits.
Yeah.
And of course, nothing really comes completely for free, because that would potentially drain the trust fund that the funding comes from. So
OASID.
So if you don't know, Social Security is funded with payroll taxes.
Yeah.
And but that doesn't cover all the benefits that are paid out to people.
No, because it's a Ponzi scheme built on a flawed idea.
Not ideal. And so the shortfall gets covered by this trust fund.
Yeah. The Old Age Survivors and Disabilities Fund.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Called Social Security Trust Fund.
Yeah.
And as of now, that's estimated to expire or to fully deplete within 10 years. So by 2034. And then by removing the taxation of these benefits, that would pretty much accelerate that by a few years. So 2031.
Yeah.
But
we take in like 1.2, 1.3 trillion, and we're paying out about 40 billion more than that every year.
Yeah, and that's draining away. And
there's 2.9. I think there's like 2.9 trillion currently in the trust fund.
Yeah, I'll look it up.
I mean, it seems like it should last longer than what they projected.
Let me look it up. That's kind of where our conversation earlier had started.
Yeah, and so there's like ideas being tossed around, right? Obviously, the first one is tax the rich, right? Did you pull up the number?
Yeah. So I'm looking at this right now. This is as of the end of 2023. It totaled approximately 2.79 trillion.
Oh, okay, I was close.
In 2023,
the
the trust funds experienced an annual deficit of 41
Look
billion.
at that.
Let's see.
I'm in the ballpark. Close enough. Works for horseshoes, hand grenades, nuclear warfare, and finance.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to. I guess that deficit is just probably projected to increase.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely going to increase, right? Because we have a huge problem in America. It was kind of offset. There was a generation recently that we did have a good expansion on in regards to numbers. It slowed the death toll of everything in America, but it just delayed it. It didn't make it inevitable. Fewer and fewer people are having kids.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff, right?
People live longer.
Yeah, and the Ponzi scheme's all built on the idea that we're going to have more and more people entering the workforce to support the older people. By the way, Japan had a similar problem. It just occurred in the 80s, I think in the 90s. And because the older people are the ones most likely to vote, they were able to keep control of the Japanese government, and their entitlement programs crushed their economy.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't recall this, but there was books written. I think Michael Crichton wrote one called Red Sun Rising or something like that. And everybody was in a panic over the Japanese buying up Rockefeller Center and all this farmland, blah, blah, blah. What do you hear today? It's the Chinese today. It was the Japs. Oops. Japanese. Earlier. Yeah, I don't know. Are you allowed? I guess you're not allowed to abbreviate names for people without getting in trouble. But anyways, yeah, it was the Japanese back in the 80s. It's the Chinese today. But their economy collapsed due to the stranglehold that their older generations had on them and the entitlement programs that were in place. We're facing a similar fate.
Yeah, I think something that's interesting, pretty wild. Just 75 years ago, 1950, there were 16 workers per retiree.
Yeah.
Today, it's 2.8.
Yeah.
And by 2035, that's expected to drop to 2-to-1 ratio.
Yeah.
So that deficit like this in 2023 to 2024 was 41 billion, but it's expected to grow exponentially.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to get into hundreds of billions of dollars, which that's how it's going to potentially be gone within 6 years from now, which is crazy.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you wanted to spitball.
Yeah. So some of the ideas are right now. I think the tax on income that funds Social Security is capped around like 174 or something like that, and they're proposing to raise it to 300.
And what
so the amount of your income that you are being taxed like 6 point something percent off of, and then your employer contributes another 6 point something percent.
Yeah.
I think that gets capped off at like 174, somewhere around there, right?
That sounds right.
And there's a proposal to increase that to 300, and then some people are about just take the proposal.
Yeah.
Just
So
take the cap.
168 600.
Okay. Yeah. So some people are saying, hey, let's double that to 300. And some people are saying, let's just completely remove the cap altogether and tax all income at that 6 point whatever percent from the individual and the same from their employer. The most feasible, just because I'm a big believer in the market, is somebody was proposing to create accounts. Your money goes into your account, and you get to manage it very similar to a 401k. And you can select from all these different funds. I think the problem, I don't know how they are addressing the fact that your money that you're contributing is not there for you to use. It's there for an older person to use, right?
Yeah.
So if it was going into an account, what percentage it's going to my account for me to manage, and what percentage of it's going to help the old people? We don't have enough already going to the old people. So how could you give me any of it to manage? I haven't looked that up. I haven't explored that option. But I think there's a much better option out there. Okay. And that would be for the federal government to create an ETF, an exchange traded fund, that would track the S&P 500. You would, as quickly as possible, move the $2.9 trillion that is currently inside the OASID trust fund, the Social Security Trust Fund, you would move that into that ETF. You would immediately become the largest by a factor of 4 times ETF on the planet. Okay. Now the S&P 500, depending on who you look at, talk to, read, delivers somewhere between like 8.32% and 10% on an annualized basis. Obviously, it's less if you adjust for inflation. And then it can also be more if you added in dividends. So lots of ways to skin that cat.
Yeah.
All right. But basically, you create this ETF. All the money being collected in Social Security taxes goes into this ETF. So it starts off with the 2.9 trillion that's currently sitting in there. It has about 1.2 trillion, 1.3 trillion going into it from taxes every year. Of course, it's going to have a $41 billion net negative inflow the first year, increasing in years 2, 3, 4, and on.
Exponentially, yeah.
Yep. I want to run the math. I want to figure out what that exponential downfall is, or net outflow is.
Yeah, we
and add that into this equation. But basically, this fund basically becomes a market maker. It's so huge that it almost acts as a stabilizer for the stock market. The net cap on the S&P 500, or not net cap, the cap. Geez, I'm blanking on what it's called, right? But basically, the cap on the S&P 500, the current valuation is about $51 trillion. Yeah. Okay, so the negative outflow from Social Security would act as a drag to a certain extent on the S&P 500. But in the first few years, while it was significantly below the 8 to 10% that the S&P 500 initially gains, and by the way, that first drop in would have significant impact on the overall valuation, right? So if you add $2.9 trillion to the S&P 500, it's going to cause a climb in valuation, right?
Yeah.
It's going to make all that worth more.
Yeah.
Right? So you're going to get a huge bump right out of the gate, and the time value of money is very important here. Then you're going to have all the continual normal inflows that are occurring every single year, every single week, right? Every payday, if you just think about it. Every single payday, there's contributions being made to the valuation of those companies through 401ks and whatnot, right? So you'd have this huge increase in valuation right out of the gate. You're going to get the 8 to 10% average annual growth rate that the S&P 500 generally gets. Of course, that's going to be offset by this $41 billion negative net outflow, with it exponentially increasing. I'd love to see what net effect that would have on the valuation of the S&P 500 over the next 10 years. We'll run some numbers on that. But basically, there's potential for this fund to act as a significant stabilizing force within the S&P 500 because it's not subject to being sold off in panic sells or due to emotion, because because the investor into it is the government. It's not individuals. There's no individuals panicking if the S&P 500 drops 10 points. So you'd have this huge chunk of capital inside the S&P 500 that is significantly less volatile than the rest of the market. That could be a significant stabilizing force. And so I would just really like to run the numbers on this.
Yeah. I think probably the most important thing would be just like the annual numbers, because it is going to grow exponentially. And then even beyond 10 years, though, because you would imagine that the exponential growth would probably slow down after a while. After No.
I mean, it's gonna, right? We know it's going to, because the population is going to die off.
The baby boomers.
Yeah. And so you have this bell curve.
Yeah, because obviously if it were to go exponentially for too long, then the drag on the stock market would eventually be a pretty big toll, like on the later years. But if we had that per year, like every year for 10 years and beyond, get a pretty good estimate on like what kind of drag that could possibly have on the stock market. And then another thing that would be interesting to look at would be instead of just doing the SP 500, if you just want to, instead of, I guess, throwing all $2 to $3 trillion into SP 500, just throw it into like some like the even like the Russell 3000 that has like every stock in America. So like it would have every U.S. stock and maybe slightly lower returns, but that way it's not just like a
502 companies.
Yeah. But you would definitely beat out whatever returns it get now, because I think right now the average is like 2 to 3% because it's just invested in treasury securities, which is, not missing out on a lot of growth. And even if they did like a certain allocation of like even 50% in the Russell 3000 or the S&P 500, and then the other 50% in treasuries, which I don't even think they need that much, they get an incredible amount of growth. So.
All right. So I just changed the calculations. So through this conversation, I identified a flaw in my earlier math. Right. So I had assigned it the 40%, the 41 billion negative net outflow for this year.
Yeah.
And then I was increasing that at a much lower rate. So what I did is I just changed it to track the depletion timeline. That results
linear scale in that case.
No, well, I have it being fully depleted by 2035. So that 41 billion is going to ramp up.
Yeah.
In negative outflows to completely wipe out the 2.9 trillion by 2035. Right. Which they're now saying upon depletion, continuing income is expected to cover approximately 83% of scheduled benefits, leading to potential 17% reduction in payouts if no legislative action is taken. All right, so that would mean so let's see here. So that could exert considerable selling pressure on the S&P 500.
You're saying if it continues to grow and it those outflows keep hitting pretty big time and
so
drag down the market.
Let's see here.
And maybe if it did, the Russell 3000 have less of a drag though.
Yeah, it could be because it's a broader. All right, so it's not currently able to calculate. With the information that I gave it, it's not able to calculate what the it's not able to really calculate that out. So we're gonna have to put a little more work and effort into determining all that.
Yeah, the Russell 3000 is not really all that much different than the SP 500 in terms of market cap. This as of, I'm sure I could look at it, but just right here, as of April 30th, 2024, so not that long ago, market cap of 53 trillion versus S&P 500 of just under 50 trillion.
Oh.
And that was, but the S&P 500 figure is from December, but I could search into it, but it's not a big difference, is what I'm saying.
So here, let's.
We're just spitballing.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you say track the Russell 2000 or Russell 5000 or 3000?
I was saying 3000. Because isn't Russell 3000 like all of it's like all.
Is there a Russell 5000?
I think Russell 3000 is like.
Is there a Russell Megatron?
I'm pretty sure Russell 3. Yeah. Okay. Well, it says that's more than 95% of investable. So let's see. Yeah, because Russell 3000 represents approximately 98% of all of the investable U.S. equity market. So. 05. Yeah, I always thought Russell 3000 was like as big as it gets, which covers like everyone. I want to say it's not even 3,000 companies. I don't know how many's in there.
Yeah, so it says the Russell 3000 contains many illiquid stocks, so
really?
selling pressure could hit those small and mid caps harder.
Oh, well, then we basically just find
The bottom 2,500 stocks, the Russell 2000 small caps, could experience greater volatility due to lower liquidity.
yeah, well, maybe.
But because mass sell-offs aren't going to occur, right, it does still reduce the risk of panic-driven crashes, which is wildly beneficial for the entire market.
Yeah. Like, and you have your budget set in place each year for how much you're going to pay out. So it's very transparent.
Yeah. What's the average annual rate of return for the Russell 3000?
Probably like 7. Let's see. 8 to 10. So
Yeah, okay, so say
approximately 7 after inflation.
All right, interesting.
What'd you find out?
No. I mean, it doesn't. Like I think, so I think what would probably end up doing, right, is you would want to create a blend of things.
Yeah, exactly. Different
Right.
asset allocation.
Yeah. But I still think that you'd want to create a blend of things, and it looks like this wouldn't be a cure-all just due to the insanely lopsided outflow that's going to occur, right? Because I mean, I'm going to have to take a look at that.
What about a mixture of? I'm not advocating for this, but what about a mixture of increasing that cap on Social Security? Or raising the rate and doing something like this. So you're kind of,
But I think so. Here's what I think would be really cool about this, right? If you did this in conjunction with increasing the cap, once you get through the hump of the baby boomers,
from there,
you would actually be able to start to significantly drop the taxes.
100%.
And this should be able to carry you on.
Yeah,
at some point.
Definitely. That's exactly what I was thinking too. Like, if you get past like that.
Yeah.
But that's why I'd like to have more. I'm struggling to find like actual per year data on like how much it's increasing exponentially, and then also beyond 2035 and getting an idea of like beyond that, like at what point are we projected to get back to a more even balance. And yeah, like the only downside I see with a plan like this is just like the potential drag on the market. But even then, I guess we'd have to do the math to see. 'Cause otherwise, like the whole argument of how volatile it is, and we got to make sure we get these payments out. It's going to run out anyways. This trust, so why not give it a fighting chance?
Yeah, I mean you got to, right, and investing in treasuries is not really working.
Yeah, on good years you're matching inflation.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's going to deplete anyways. And Trump, if he's going to take away these taxes on Social Security benefits, that's taking 3 years off the lifespan of it. And then worst case scenario, we just go to a dollar for dollar program that we're on track to do anyways. That once this runs out, the payments are going to be equal to the inflows. So you say like roughly 75%.
Yep.
it's going to happen anyways.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to flesh that one out a little bit more.
Yeah.
Like a total nut job. I sent that to, I sent that idea and concept. Not that some, I mean, probably a million people have already thought of it, but to Doge, and then to one of Elon's advisors. Actually, two different of Elon's advisors. Well, one of Elon's advisors and one of Trump's advisors. So we'll see if we get to work with anybody to flesh it out further. So
Yeah, start somewhere.
Yep. So I don't know if you're ready to wrap this up. I actually have a call from a hedge fund that has 110 million in open AI. They're trying to offload 10 million of it. So
You better go
I need
take
to take that call.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Until next week, this is Elliot
Yes, Nathaniel.
signing off.
All righty.